This is the College Investor Audio Show. Thank you so much for being here today. Our topic today is federal versus private student loans. The differences, the benefits of each, all that kind of stuff. But first, just want to remind you, go ahead and hit that subscribe button so you're always up to date on all the new content we're posting all the time on all your favorite podcast channels. You can also follow us all over social media. We are pretty much everywhere you are. Just search for the words College Investor and you'll find us. All right, let's get to it. So first of all, congratulations. You've been accepted to your dream school. The hard part is over. Or so you think. All right, so once you're accepted, you kind of have to figure out how you're going to pay for this thing so you can actually start taking classes and stuff. After you're admitted, you're going to receive a financial aid package that kind of breaks down your cost of attendance, minus any grants, scholarships, or some other sources of financial aid you're eligible for. This includes federal student loans. A lot of students choose to cover their college expenses with federal student loans, but that's really not the only way to finance a college education. You can also use private student loans. I actually had to use a small private student loan for my senior year, which was pretty easy. I could pay it off pretty quickly, but still, there are pros and cons to consider before you go that private route. It might actually be necessary depending on your financial situation. For me, yeah, it was. So today, we'll break down the difference between federal versus private student loans and what you should consider before signing on the dotted line. First up, we take a look at federal student loans. Federal student loans are offered by the federal government and are managed by several different service providers through the Department of Education. These types of loans are usually the first option students choose to finance their education. That's because government-backed loans come with several benefits, making them an appealing option. There are two types of federal loans students are eligible for: subsidized and unsubsidized. Subsidized student loans are offered to students facing financial hardship. The government covers the interest that accrues on these loans while a student is in school. Unsubsidized loans, on the other hand, are offered to all students regardless of need. Interest on these loans accrues while a student is still in school. Undergraduate students are eligible for up to $31,000 in federal student loans, of which $23,000 can be subsidized. That basically means the government is willing to cover your education up to $31,000. After that, you're on your own. Graduate students are eligible for up to $138,500 in federal student loans. Ouch, that's like a small house. So if you're facing a shortfall in funding, there is a third type of federal loan called the Direct Plus loan. Students cannot take out this loan directly, but if their parent claims them as a dependent, then their parents can take one out on their behalf. Students who are independent, though, of their parents and don't qualify for Plus loans can access higher levels of regular student loan funding. The limit on Plus loans depends on where you attend school and how much other aid you receive. If your cost of attendance is $50,000 and you receive $30,000 in other aid, parents are eligible to take out the difference. That would be $20,000. So one of the primary benefits of federal student loans is the potential for forgiveness in the future. This includes programs like the Public Student Loan Forgiveness Program, which forgives student loan balances of individuals working for government organizations or in nonprofits. This is important to consider if your career path might make it difficult for you to repay your student loans in the future. Federal student loans also come with a variety of repayment options. You can access income-based repayment options that can make student loan repayment a little more manageable, especially when you might not have a large income at the start of your career. Loans backed by the government typically come with lower interest rates and have easier underwriting requirements. That makes them more accessible than private student loans, which students without a credit history might not be eligible for. The biggest downside of federal student loans is that there are limits. If you don't have a parent that is able or willing to take out Plus loans on your behalf, you might find yourself in a shortfall. That kind of necessitates adding some private loans to your mix. So to access federal student loans, you first have to qualify for them. You can determine your eligibility by completing the Free Application for Federal Student Aid, or FAFSA. This application determines your family's expected family contribution and will let you know whether you're eligible for federal student loans and, of course, how much you can take out. It's also going to help you qualify for other financial aid options like grants and work study programs. Okay, now let's talk about private student loans for a second. When federal student loans aren't enough, and if you don't qualify, private loans are another option. These are offered by providers that specialize in student loans, as well as banks and credit unions. I actually got mine from Citibank. Loans are offered with variable and fixed rates that vary across lenders. Private loans can be more expensive and harder to access than federal loans. I think since mine was so small, though, the interest rate was rather low, and it was actually exactly the same as my federal loan. I don't know how. Can't really remember. It was like, 2003. So there's that. Private loans can be more expensive, kind of in theory. They have higher interest rates usually, and they're based on a borrower's creditworthiness rather than their financial need. I guess I had good credit. To determine rates and eligibility, lenders are going to do a credit check. This can be problematic for students who don't have a credit history or meet other eligibility terms, like, having an income. Unlike federal student loans, there are no limits to the amount of private loans a student can take out. Like other types of loans, borrowers can access as much credit as they can afford. Loan terms tend to be longer, with many lenders offering repayment up to 20 years. If you have good credit, you find yourself attending an expensive school, private loans may be preferable for covering costs. I only needed like $2,500. It wasn't that big of a deal. Private loans may also be the preferred option for graduate students, too. While there are federal loans for individuals pursuing advanced degrees, there are also limits to how much a student can borrow. In some cases, a private loan may offer better terms than a federal loan, especially if a graduate student has established credit and can get some better terms. The downside? Yeah, they don't come with the same repayment options and forgiveness eligibility offered by federal student loans. If you had private loans during COVID-19, for example, you weren't eligible at all for any pause in payments. Is it better to have federal or private loans? Well, okay, so as you get ready to enroll in college, you might be wondering which is better, federal or private. Students may default to choosing federal because they're just the easiest and can be accessed as part of their financial aid package. That being said, you can choose whether or not to use federal or private loans. That choice is just going to come down to your personal financial situation. If you decide to enroll at a university with a high cost of attendance, you might hit that limit of federal loans you're able to take out. Private loans may be necessary to cover any gaps. You might also want to shop around to find the best rate. While federal loans come with some benefits and are typically lower, you might find a private lender offers a better deal. They typically don't come with origination fees that you'll be expected to pay if you opt for federal student loans. You're also going to want to look at your career goals before choosing which student loans to take out. If you plan to take a job with a nonprofit, you may be eligible for certain repayment programs offered by the federal government. Private loans don't come with the same opportunities for forgiveness. This is something you'll want to think about before committing to one type of loan over another. Now, let's talk real quick about how to apply for student loans. Well, to apply for these, just start by completing the FAFSA. You can submit your FAFSA anytime between October and June. This will determine your eligibility for a variety of government programs, like grants, in addition to student loans. And then once you've filled out that FAFSA thingy and received your student aid package from your university, crunch the numbers. If you have a shortfall, then you can apply for private loans. Complete your application with the lender you'd like to borrow from, and work with them to get your loan dispersed to your university to cover your costs. Private loans have different terms, they have different interest rates, and repayment requirements than federal loans. So whether you choose private or federal, you'll want to evaluate all of the requirements so you know what's expected of you when you finish your degree and when you're responsible to start making payments. So that also begs the question, how do I know if my student loans are federal or private? Students who pay for college with private student loans typically need to do so on their own terms. You'll have a loan account with a lender that is different from financial aid you receive through the government or your university. So to see your federal student loan balance, you'll just check the Federal Student Aid website. You can do so by logging in with your ID. Your loans will typically be listed right there. If you're still in school or have recently graduated, The company servicing your student loans will likely reach out to you when it's time for you to begin making payments. You can also pull a copy of your credit report. Any loans you have are going to be listed right there. This is really a good practice to do at least once a year to monitor for identity theft. Here are some alternatives, though, to student loans. Yeah, while student loans are one of the easiest ways to finance your college education, they're not the only way. There are some other ways you can pay your tuition bill without even going into debt. First, scholarships. Millions, no joke, millions of dollars are offered to students every year in the form of scholarships. This is free money. You don't even have to pay it back. You can apply for scholarships before you start school and while you're enrolled, believe it or not. Look for grants. All right, so another form of free funding are grants. These are offered by federal government programs as well as privately by universities themselves. Grants aren't always publicly advertised, so you might have to do a little bit of sleuthing to find them and determine if you're eligible to apply. Work part-time. Some students may be offered work study as part of their student aid package. This can grant you a job on campus, but it isn't the only way to earn money. Deliver some pizzas, wait tables. That can put you in a good financial health when you graduate. You can use your earnings to cover small things while you're a student, like textbooks, or maybe you can just start paying your loans immediately so you can stop the interest from accruing. It's a great idea to do that. I wish somebody would have told me that. There isn't really a right or wrong way to pay for college. Whether you opt for federal student loans or private loans, just evaluate your situation carefully and consider all of the options you have before even taking on debt. Loans should be the last thing you consider. And that is our show for today. If you want to find out more, dive a little bit deeper into more tips and tricks on paying for college, check out thecollegeinvestor.com. It's chock full of stuff for you. Also follow us, ask questions, get to know us. We'd love to get to know you a little bit better. On social media, just search for The College Investor and you'll find us. Thanks again for stopping by today, and we will talk to you again real soon.